It's Thursday. I have a talk to do on Wednesday. It's my biggest talk engagement ever, my biggest speaking engagement. I've been working on the topic, working on my talk for months, probably since February, and it is now almost June, and I still don't have my talk figured out. I'm going to share some thoughts about, how the process is going, and maybe just work out with you guys maybe what's going on. And what I really want to do is just practice being in the struggle with my audience, because so much of what we're doing on YouTube, on social media, is showing our best, showing how successful we are, talking about our strengths. I think that's really important. I think without the strengths, without the successes, my failures don't mean anything to people. We don't follow or subscribe or admire people who are only failures. We admire people who are successful in spite of their failures. So I'm going to talk about some things that I'm struggling with right now. But first, I do have some quick announcements to make. So the first one is that on June 7th, I'll be joining Sally and Nate for a live draw along with Illustrators Circle. So if you know They Draw and Travel, They Draw and Cook, Sally and Nate are the people behind those wonderful Instagram accounts and that website, They Draw and Cook, or They Draw. I should probably figure out what the actual link is called. Anyway, I've got something fun planned for all of us to draw, and I hope you can join in. It's on June 7th from 11:30 to 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. I have some beard or something in my hair. My eye. Anyway, the second thing that I wanted to share with you guys is I got this little package in the mail from a certain Charles Hively. And you may have heard his name. He's the guy behind 3x3 magazine. I often recommend his portfolio reviews on this channel. And so he got in touch with me, basically thanking me for recommending him here on YouTube so much. He gets quite a handful of people coming to him for portfolio reviews, citing that they heard about him from me on this channel. So first of all, thank you for going and checking out his portfolio reviews. I hope that it's been a good experience for you. And of course, Charles wanted to just let me know that he's grateful for the the hype. So he sent me this in gratitude. It's a where's my knife here? I think it's a copy of one of his latest magazines. We're going to find out together here right now. So this is Illo 2022. It's the smaller. This would be the illustration annual, and a beautiful cover as always. So what I'm looking at basically is the annual that 3x3 magazine puts out every year. This is the illustration annual. You basically send your work in, you submit your work, and if it wins a merit or honor or an award of some kind, it ends up in this book. It's a lot like communication arts, where the same thing happens. You apply, you enter the competition, and if your work gets a mention or if it gets a placement, goes in the magazine. So that's what this is. I look forward to digging into that. And he also sent me this beauty, which is 3x3 magazine issue 25, and has a beautiful image on the front there by illustrator Scott Bacall, or however you pronounce his last name. I ask his forgiveness if I've totally botched that. And some pretty lovely work in there. I look forward to digging into that. So the difference between these two magazines, I guess, is that one is the annual. So one of these will come out once a year. That's a smaller one where it's a competition. If you win, you get in. And the bigger one is more of a, I don't know what frequency 3x3 publishes that, but this is evidently issue 25, as it says on the spine there. And this is more like a magazine format where there's articles and more themes, stuff like that. Yes. So I was right that the cover is by Scott Bacall, and there's an article a little bit about him. So it must be one of the features in the magazine. Anyway, big thanks to Charles Hively for sending me this in the mail all the way from Brooklyn, New York. So awesome. From Brooklyn to little old Chilliwack, British Columbia. So let's get into what I want to talk about today. I'm not using my teleprompter. This is going to be rather unscripted, and it may blow up and totally suck, and I'll stop recording and decide that it's not worth publishing. This is a very common scenario for me. I often will do this. I'll record something kind of freeform and not pre-written, and I feel like I have fire in my belly to bring to the channel, and it just kind of fizzles out and goes nowhere. And this is kind of exactly what's happening as I'm writing my talk. I know I have so much to talk about as an experienced illustrator, as an experienced teacher. I'm a professional in these realms in teaching illustration and in illustration itself. I'm not a professional speaker. And meanwhile, I'm going up on stage kind of pretending to be one. And the event will be in Vancouver. It's called Design Thinkers. It's running from May 29th to June 1st, 2022. I'll be speaking on the second day, which gives me a little bit more time, I guess, than the speakers will have for the first day. So there is that. So the story of how my talk is coming along so far is that I have a title that I've pitched to the conference called Strategies for Making Work You're Actually Good At. And the reason I chose this title is because it's always been important to me to feel like I'm kind of in that zone where I am creating with confidence and I know that what I'm making is good, because that's where I'm happiest creating. The place where I'm sure we can all relate that I'm the least happy making is when it's situations like this where I'm trying to create something that has to be good. It has to be good, but I'm not getting there. And maybe it is good, but I don't know. And because I don't know, I can't bring it home. I can't take it all the way. I keep having all these false starts, and then it doesn't go anywhere. I've written so many beginnings to this talk. I write, think I'm yeah. And then I get to a certain point and I'm like, how do I bring this home? Or I do write an entire talk and I think this is great, this flowed. Maybe I write it out, or maybe I kind of just talk it out in my on my voice recorder on my phone. And what happens when I try to re-talk it out, so I write it out, I record it out, when I try to rehearse it again, when I try to capture whatever it was that I said in that when it was fresh, it comes out very stale. And I really think that like speaking on a stage is both harder. Well, I guess some people just make it look so easy. Like some person knows stuff, does stuff, has slide deck showing stuff, goes up on stage and talks about it. Done. But for me, I'm finding there's so much involved in doing a talk. There's a component where you have to go up and be an expert. There's that level. There's the component of actually knowing what you're saying. You want to have something to some kind of information to deliver to your audience. There's the issue of like, how do you tell that? What kind of stories do you tell? And then there's the level of the slideshow itself. Like, how does that relate to what you're talking? And what if the slides are too on the nose with your talking points? Some of the talks that I've ever seen that I've admired the most, there's just been this magical relationship between the presenter, what they're showing on their screen, and their audience. There's really like a connection to the audience because the speaker's in their zone and they're able to string together thoughts or stories so smoothly. And their way of using slides really shows that. You know, I look up to one of my favorite presentations from a fellow illustrator is Christoph Niemann's talk for 99U, which is the 3 fears every creative faces. And he's just so good at talking about these pain points that all creatives, illustrators, designers, artists truly do face. And he's able to tell it in a very personal way. And he tells it with his own artwork, his own illustrations, both ones that he made for the purpose of the presentation, but also work that he's done before, like work for The New Yorker, for instance. And so I'm jealous of people like Christoph Niemann, who, from my vantage point, can get up on stage and deliver a talk like a pro. He's a pro at it. He really is. He's got a gift. I know, and this isn't self-deprecation. I know that I am pretty I'm choppy when I'm talking upstage, which it makes me wonder what the heck do I want to be doing up there if I'm so uncomfortable up there. There is a part of me that is a performer. I mean, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel if I wasn't a performer in some way. I'm not afraid to be in front of the public, but I am afraid of being in front of the public and not having something to say. I don't want to be caught with my pants down, and that's what it feels like. I'm dreading Wednesday instead of excited. And it's because I feel unprepared, and so part of it is like, if I don't know what I'm saying and I'm inexperienced as a speaker and I'm not confident, I'm going to get up there and it's just not going to be that good, or it won't be as good as I want it to be. So I want it to be amazing. I want to touch people. I want to make people cry. I want to make people laugh. But at very minimum, I just want to have something to say that's cohesive. And I think I do. But every time I go out to write it, every time I sit down and think that now I can write my outline, now I can flesh out my points, now I can go into Keynote and actually start making my slides, I get stuck because then there's a part of me that says, no, that's not quite right. Like that's, for some reason, I just lose that fire in my belly and I forget why I'm writing what I'm writing, or I get lost in the details of my story. And, you know, even this video right now is me being stuck. Like, I think the past few videos have been around basically me struggling to come up with this talk. And I actually am fairly comfortable with that. You know, it's not necessarily me giving you expert insights and inspiration how to become a better illustrator like I normally do, or normally would like to. It feels a little bit self-indulgent. But I'm comfortable with this because this is really where I struggle. And when you're doing a talk, when you're doing a presentation, when you're telling a story, if there's no struggle, there's no conflict, there's no story. And so in a way, I welcome this struggle because it is my story. I don't want to, like, I don't know, how would I say this? I feel like in my illustration work, I actually don't struggle a whole lot in the work itself. I mean, there's the usual, like, trying to come up with an idea and you get stuck for a little while, but you figure it out. But I feel like, you know, I've done my 10,000 hours as an illustrator, and I don't really get too stressed out when it comes to that, especially if I have enough time to work it out. So there's not a lot of struggle in my work. Where is my struggle? You know, I don't think we should feel bad about not having struggle, but if we're going to stand on a stage, I think the most relatable thing is for an audience to see someone who seems to have all their act together, but then they reveal something true and vulnerable and show how, in spite of all those things, they can have their act together. And so, as you can see, you know, my struggle is really just to write this talk. It's really to make up my mind, to focus in on what my point is, which is something that I know a lot of creatives struggle with, because when illustration learners, students, people from the channel here, they'll come and ask, you know, they'll relate some of the problems with me. A lot of them revolve around just like, you kind of need to just make a choice. Like, I know you want to do everything, but you need to kind of zoom in and focus and not worry about all the things you're not doing, but focus on one thing you can do right now and just do that. So my advice to people is always just to, you know, be specific. If you want to get good at something, if you want to be good, if you want to make good work, you got to get specific. You got to focus. You know, one of the metaphors that I've come up with in, you know, and think about this talk is like, I don't actually think that I'm a very good illustrator in the grand scheme of things. Like, you know, I'm good enough that I'm working as a professional, and I don't doubt that. But when I look back at my 10 years of work that I've made, and I did this recently as an exercise in trying to build out my slide deck, like, what are some images that I can pull out and share? I look at most of my work, and I've talked about this before here on the channel. Like, I actually don't think it's that good. Like, there's so many things that I see in it that aren't very well crafted, and maybe I'm repeating something I've said in previous recent videos. Forgive me if I am. But the point here is, like, if I'm not really like that, if my illustration skills on their own, like my ability to draw, for instance, or my ability to paint in Photoshop, things like that, if those are rather ordinary, what is it that allows these things to come together in a way that clients are willing to pay for, and in some cases pay a lot of money for? And what makes it good enough that students want to watch my classes and learn from me as an illustrator? And the secret here is focus. It's focus. I think through the power of focus, we can take ordinary skills and turn them into extraordinary things. And my metaphor or my example is a magnifying glass, which can take the largely harmless energy of the sun and focus it into a beam, focus it into a point rather, that can start a fire. So you have, on a sunny day, you can walk outside and you won't die. You might get a sunburn, but generally speaking, you're not going to experience pain or discomfort. The focusing power of the magnifying glass takes that energy and turns it into one point that can cause discomfort, that can cause pain, that can set a fire. And so what is that focus? I'm trying to think, what is the focus in my own work that's allowed me to do that? Anyway, I haven't quite been able to put into words what that means. I do know that maybe if I just step back from that metaphor and try not to be too literal about saying, the magnifying glass is this and the focus beam is that and the little point is this. I don't need to be so one-to-one with these things. The main principle here is specificity. When you're specific, when you have a specific problem you're trying to solve with a specific goal, you can get to work. You can start taking steps to solve whatever that goal is. And that's why in my illustration work, I'm never stuck. In my personal work, I get stuck all the time. That's because there is no brief, there is no goal, there is no mission. It's totally open-ended. It's a problem of there being too much possibility, not that there's not enough of it. There's too much inspiration, not enough of it. And so the key to focus is specificity. Have a brief from a client that explains what your job is, what you're meant to do, where the work is meant to go. And then at every point in your process should be a step of getting more and more focused and specific in how you're solving that problem. First, it starts off as loose sketches, and then it refines into more tight, refined sketches. And then those sketches are specific enough for the client to give their stamp of approval on. And then you can take them into final art where you use specific tools to build them up. There's lots of layers of specificity here that you end up with just the one thing at the end, which is the work doing its job, fulfilling its purpose in the context that it was intended for. So I've kind of lost my train of thought here, but this really is these are the thoughts circling around my head for this talk. I'm just having the hardest time bringing it home in perhaps a cohesive way, in a way that won't take longer than a half an hour. And also in telling a story that shares my vulnerability. So I think I've got the idea of the power of focus down. I've got the idea of how it's important to be specific. But I need to bring in an element of how I struggle specifically and bring that to the talk. So obviously I could bring this very struggle itself to my talk. I could be up there on stage and talk about how the struggle that I'm overcoming or even living out right now is just in the act of making this talk and standing up on a stage and being vulnerable and being willing to be bad. I think there will be power in that. But I want it to be more than just me being up on stage and using that as my content. I think I need to bring more experience than that, because obviously if I'm standing up there talking about strategies for making work you're actually good at, I have to show that I struggled and then was successful. There's no guarantee that the talk itself will be successful. I am 99.9% confident it will be successful. Things always work, but I can't prove it at this point. I don't have enough to go by. As you can see, I'm really, really spinning my tires on this one still. I think the point about struggling in the talk, in making this talk, will be valuable on stage, but it can't be my main source of content. I really believe that the main source of my content has to be something in my illustration work. Where have I struggled the most? So one thought is that I struggle a ton in liking my own work, accepting it. On one level, I accept it because the client has accepted it and they've paid for it, or I put it on Instagram and I've gotten likes and comments. But on another level, and this goes back to looking at my body of work from the past 10 years, is that I look at it and I really do question, like, how on earth have I been successful as an illustrator? How on earth have I not only survived, but also thrived as an illustrator? You know, what is the secret there? And I've already kind of answered that question with the focus and specificity point. Like, there's been a lot of me knowing what I want and going for it, and that becoming sort of the through line for me, that while I'm aiming for that, all the other things that could get me down or distract me or cause me less success, they kind of fall by the wayside. I haven't quite figured out how to talk about that yet. It's not very clear to me yet, at least not in this moment. But there's the struggle that I constantly have is self-doubt, and kind of like doubting myself and thinking, like, why me? Who wants to see me up on the stage? Why did I volunteer for this? This is definitely outside of my lane. It's out of my range. This is not my strong suit. I'm actually doing people a disservice. You know, it sounds to me like a very obvious case of imposter syndrome. I kind of hate using that term because it's so cliche right now. I think imposter syndrome is just an easy thing to declare when we're struggling. But you know what? I'm going to declare it. I am facing, and I often do face, imposter syndrome. But somehow I also have a sense of confidence that I know how to turn these things into successes. I at least have in my own life, and that's what I want to share with people. And you know, anyway, today I'm just deep in this struggle right now, and you can see that I'm following thoughts, going as far as I can, and then I get off point, and I really lose track of where I was going. This is something that's increasingly becoming apparent to me, just as like I don't want to call it a disability because that's a technical term, but I have a terrible short-term memory, and I always forget what I'm saying. I don't know if it's old age or I'm not getting enough. I'm not old. I don't know if it's aging, like I'm 40, almost 42 now. So I don't know if it's just getting older means that I'm being more forgetful, but I think I've always been like this. I don't know if it's that I'm lacking sleep. I do lack a lot of sleep. I only get about 6 hours a night, just the way things are for me. And so maybe that's why I don't have excellent short-term memory or working memory, as they call it. So I'm actually in the process of trying to figure out why that might be, aside from some of my habits or aging, like my sleep habits. Maybe give you more on that another time. But it is definitely something that's holding me back, because I can't carry a thought all the way, or I'll be on fire and then I get stuck and I'm like, shoot, where was I? And I can't get back to where I was. I'm much better at writing stuff out, putting it up on a teleprompter, and then reading on camera and being confident in that way and being perfect. But I do know, I've heard this time and time again, especially as I've been really thinking about this talk, I do know audiences want the person speaking not to be a total success, not to be a smooth operator. They want to see them be somewhat vulnerable. They want to see them as someone who, in spite of their failures, was a success. The key is that they were a failure or are a failure, or their life is a mess, and somehow they're still achieving things, because that's what makes success accessible. It's what makes the hope that you too, or I too, could be a part of this creative industry, that you too could be an illustrator, that you too could be an artist or a designer and make a living doing it, in spite of all the things that you don't feel like you have together. This is what an audience wants. And there's also, people get their back up about people who are up on stage who sound like they know everything. Nobody likes to know it all. Norm Macdonald, the late comedian, is known to have said that nobody likes a guy who's smarter than them. And I think there's something to that. I think there's something to, like, I've definitely been at conferences and talks where the person on stage is just way too confident and seems to have all the answers, and there's no story. There's no story of how they struggle. It's very like arrogant or boring or something like that. I don't want to be that guy. But I think there's also a problem with people who are too vulnerable, people who are too self-deprecating, or they hide behind information and don't bring something of themselves either. And that's definitely a problem too. And I think that's actually my tendency is I want to, whenever I've done a talk, I've tried to take the humble route and just be like, people don't care about me as a person or as a personality. I'm not important. I'm not on this stage for who I am as an individual. I'm on the stage for the work that I'm known for. So get up on stage, don't talk about yourself, talk about your work, make it about the work. But I think people really do like stories about the individual. And there's that saying, the universal is in the particular. And so what is my story? What is interesting about it? What is my true struggle? How can I relate that struggle to the topic of getting to a point where you're making good work that you feel confident about in, work that you are enjoying because you're not struggling? Is that a myth? Is that even obtainable? What are the examples in my own life? And so I'm going to leave it there, unresolved, and I want to be able to come back next week here on the channel and tell you how the talk went. It's going to be what it is. I have it written on my wall. You can't see it, but I just wrote myself a reminder just in big letters. It says, it will be what it will be. And truly, I am trying. It's not that I'm not putting in effort. And for that reason alone, it's going to be a half-decent talk. I might bomb. It might be embarrassing. I might never speak again or be invited to speak again. It could be, but it will be what it will be. Next week, I'm going to report back and tell you how it went. And guys, I'm really scared about, I'm trying to be bold about it. I'm trying to be brave and have a good, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. I think I'm just thinking about coming back. I think what I'm getting emotional about right now is that I'm going to be coming back next week, and the event will have happened. I'm going to be able to report to you exactly what happened. And that's both scary and exciting. And in an odd sort of way, it's helping me kind of think like, it'll be over. It'll be over. And I'll have a story to tell. Anyway, that was more emotional than I intended to be here. Anyway, thank you for watching all the way to the end, and for bearing with me as I'm unable to make my more usual type of content, which is more smooth and pre-written and helpful and perhaps better for the algorithm. I don't know. But this is where I'm at, and I do want to show up because every week I want to post a video. And by the way, since our last video, this is something I wanted to celebrate from at the top of the video, but here it is at the end. We're at 10,000 subscribers. This is the milestone that I've had my eye on for, I think it was 3 years ago that I wanted 10,000 followers and I didn't get it, but here we are, 10,000 followers in 2022. So I'd just like to thank you all for subscribing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for liking. Thank you for telling me in the comments what these videos mean to you, how they've helped you, how my classes have helped you, and for just sharing those. Every time you guys, well, let me just say, it means a lot to me that people choose to subscribe to this channel, to watch or listen to my videos, however you consume this content. I don't take it for granted. It's incredible just to think about 10,000 people all in one place, filling a small stadium perhaps, and me standing in the middle, looking around and seeing you all. I like to do that as an exercise, just to appreciate how much thousands of people are. And that's something that, a little bit of a tangent here, but when you're looking at your Instagram following, maybe it's not as big as you want, but imagine all the people that chose to follow you, or if you have a channel here, all the subscribers, and it's not as big as you want it to be. Imagine all the subscribers that you do have, and imagine them listening to you, nodding along as you're talking. Somebody's listening to you, and more will if you just keep showing up. And that's what I'm doing. I'm showing up. I'm a bit of an emotional wreck right now. But anyway, thank you for watching all the way to the end. My name is Tom Froese. You can find my classes at tomfroese.com/teaching. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.